it raises the question about whether or not a taxi driver has a right to carry any weapon, or should they all be searched regularly and have their weapons confiscated. And I have a reason for saying that, and that is because of a message that we got in yesterday, just after our show yesterday, from one of our Opinions Matter listeners, and her name is Claire. She is a taxi driver, and we have disguised Claire's voice to protect her identity. But I want to play this message from this Dublin taxi driver called Claire.
Hi Adrian, I've been a taxi driver for 22 years. In all my years as a taxi driver, I've never seen anything like this video that has just shook me to the core. What is becoming of our industry? I mean, I'm afraid even to sometimes pull on a rank in the city in case of abuse from other drivers. I've always thought when bringing my passengers home, they are safe now. But when I seen this video, our sons, our daughters, our mothers, our fathers are really not safe. I just think something needs to be done. All taxi drivers need to be searched constantly because of these weapons they're carrying. It's shook me to the core. Thanks, Adrian.
All right, now there you go. She believes that and she's a taxi driver herself, all taxi drivers need to be searched regularly, and if they are carrying weapons, they should have those weapons confiscated. Now, the other side of that argument is, because it can be a dangerous industry, because you get all sorts of idiots in taxis, they should be allowed to carry some sort of a defensive weapon. 085 825 2626 is our WhatsApp number. Let us know whether or not you think taxi drivers should be constantly searched, and if they are carrying weapons, have those weapons confiscated. Or maybe you believe that taxi drivers should be allowed to carry some sort of a weapon for their own defence. 085 825 2626 is our WhatsApp number. We'd love to get you involved in this conversation. And let's have a listen to this WhatsApp voice note from Morris, who has watched the video.
How you doing, lads? Yeah, welcome back. I downloaded the app yesterday. It's great to hear you back on live and contributing to the well-being of the listeners in Dublin. On the taxi item, I watched the video myself. I got sent his ID, who he is. I'm going to report him to the carriage office and to the Gardaí, and I think he should be expelled from the country. Anybody that comes into this country that's given a chance to make a living and then goes around Dublin armed with a weapon, whether it's a knife or a screwdriver, strip him of his public service vehicle licence, take his citizenship off him and send him back to where he came from and teach them all a lesson. Thanks, Morris.
All right, there you go. That's his message. 085 825 2626 is our WhatsApp number. So that guy is going to report this particular taxi driver, the one with the knife, to the carriage office. I would argue with you that he is probably and is not likely to be the only one who is carrying a weapon of any sort. I think a lot of taxi drivers are carrying weapons.
We've heard about this. This is nothing new, by the way. It's just that you happen to see a video about it. We've been, as you know, doing these type of talk shows for years and years and years, and we've regularly down the years spoken to taxi drivers who do actually carry weapons. But I think there's a bit of an underbelly to this whole story, and I think there's a difference to this story, and I think a lot of it is coming from racism, actually, because we deliberately did not mention the taxi driver's colour. We didn't mention his race. We don't know his race, by the way. But the first thing that people seemed to home in on this was, close the borders, and using it as a race issue. This is not a race issue. This taxi driver could be any colour. It's irrelevant what colour.
In fact, I've just gotten a message from Grace, and Grace says, my husband was a taxi driver for 14 years and carried pepper spray because he needed to protect himself after all the attacks on taxi drivers. And this is the argument. I believe that a taxi driver should be allowed to carry some sort of a protective instrument.
Really?
Whether that be a pepper spray or I know one taxi driver carries a baseball bat down the side of his seat.
Why?
Because he's been attacked, he's been robbed, he's been mugged, and he doesn't feel safe. He can't afford to not be a taxi driver, so he carries a baseball bat, and thankfully has never had to use it, but it's there if he needs it. Now, I'm not saying every taxi driver in Dublin should be allowed to carry a knife. I think that's a bit over the top, but some sort of a protective weapon, where the lady who sent us the video in the first place, or the message in the first place, is arguing that taxi drivers should all be searched regularly and have any weapons they may have in their car confiscated. Now, I don't know which side of the fence you're on. Do you think they should have any sort of... So if a taxi driver has pepper spray in his little thing under his seat to protect himself, should that be confiscated off him?
I think it's different now because a lot of taxi drivers, because of COVID now, they have a screen in place, which kind of gives them...
They don't all, though. Some do, yeah.
Which gives them some type of protection. But I tell you this, I do not want to get into a taxi knowing that there's a possibility that the driver has a weapon, and
he's not going to pull the weapon on you if you're behaving yourself and going from A to B.
And that if we end up getting into an argument about a fare or whatever the case may be, that weapon would be pulled. I'm surprised that you're actually taking that stance. That you think?
I think it's a dangerous business. And like I said, the guy that I'm referring to who carries the baseball bat in his vehicle, he has been regularly attacked, assaulted, and he just wants to be able to protect himself. That's it. Simple as. 085 825 2626 is our WhatsApp number. We'd love to get you involved in this conversation. Do you believe that taxi drivers should be allowed to carry some sort of a weapon? Now, I wouldn't be arguing in favour of carrying a 6-inch long knife.
So hang on, they're only allowed to carry weapons that are approved by you. Who decides what weapon is dangerous and what weapon isn't dangerous? I mean,
okay, should they be allowed to carry a pepper spray then? Which is illegal, really.
Well, you can't. You'd have to make up different... You can't just turn a blind eye and say, okay, well, pepper spray is illegal in this country, but let's give taxi drivers exemption and carry... What? What about a taser gun?
Well, actually, one message on our Facebook a moment ago said they should be allowed to carry either pepper spray or a taser when they're driving their car, because it is a dangerous business.
It's a dangerous business, all right, but a lot of taxi drivers now, and I know for this from talking to them, is that they know when they're picking up a fare whether or not the person they're picking up is bogey or not, and they kind of know at this stage, oh God, I better not pick up this person because they may cause me trouble. Taxi drivers are fairly savvy, and thankfully well, maybe I'm wrong, maybe taxi drivers can correct me. I would imagine a tax on taxi drivers, it's a fairly low number, would it be?
Well, I'm not a taxi driver, but no, it does happen. It does happen.
Yeah, but you don't hear about it happening every day.
No, not every day. Let's have a listen to that lady's message again. This is a lady called Claire, who sent us this message yesterday after the show. We've disguised her voice to protect her identity, and Claire is a taxi driver.
Hi, Adrian. I've been a taxi driver for 22 years. In all my years as a taxi driver, I've never seen anything like this figure that has just shook me to the core. What is becoming of our industry? I mean, I'm afraid even to sometimes pull on a rank in the city in case of abuse from other drivers. I've always thought when bringing my passengers home, they are safe now. But when I seen this video, our sons, our daughters, our mothers, our fathers are really not safe. I just think something needs to be done. All taxi drivers need to be searched constantly because of these weapons they're carrying. It's shook me to the core.
And that's a taxi driver. That's a taxi driver who's arguing that they should not be allowed to carry any sort of a weapon whatsoever.
Yeah, I wonder, does that taxi driver work days or does she work nights? Because I think your opinion on this would be depending on whether you work days or nights. I would imagine a tax on taxi drivers during the day is fairly small compared to at night time.
I think you're probably right. 085 825 2626 is our WhatsApp number. The question that we're asking is, and a lot of you have seen the video of the taxi drivers having a bit of a confrontation in the city the other day, and one of them had a very long 6-inch blade in his hand. He didn't use it, but you could see very clearly in the video that he had it in his hand, which means he had it in his taxi, which means it's there for him to use. Now, on this particular occasion, he didn't use it, but it raises the whole question about whether or not taxi drivers should be allowed to carry some sort of a defensive weapon, be that pepper spray or a baseball bat or a taser or a knife. And I want to just run a very quick Opinions Matter poll and ask you that simple question. And this is the question. Simply send the word yes or no to 085 825 2626. Should taxi drivers be allowed to carry some sort of a defensive weapon? All I want you to do is send the word yes or no to 085 825 2626. And if you're answering yes, what should they be allowed to carry? So simply send the word yes or no to 085 825 2626. And the question once again is, should taxi drivers be allowed to carry a defensive weapon, bearing in mind the industry can be very dangerous, particularly at nighttime? 085 825 2626. Here's a WhatsApp voice note that's just come in to us from Tom.
Hi, I just sent in the text there. When there's a weapon present, you're more likely to respond aggressively. It's called a weapon effect. So if you know that there's one there, you're more likely to use it. So any driver or person that is walking around with a weapon is pretty much in the mindset that if I get in a fight, I'm going to kill someone, I'm going to seriously hurt them. And when that taxi driver took it out of his pocket or took it out of the car, then he's saying, let's go, I'm ready. So guards, absolutely, fine them, charge them, stick them in jail for a few months for that at the very, very least. You intended to use it. You don't bring a weapon out and not intend to use it. People who say, oh, I just brought it out just in case, waffle. Best of luck to you. Feel free to email me from a prison saying that you only intended to use it as a warning.
Okay, 085 825 2626 is our WhatsApp number. And once again, the question that we're asking you is, should taxi drivers be allowed to carry a weapon for defensive purposes? And I'm talking about, for example, maybe a spray, a pepper spray, or a taser. And I want you to just send yes or no to 085 825 2626. And the question that I'm asking you is, should taxi drivers be allowed to carry a weapon for defensive reasons? And if you say yes, what is the sort of weapon they should be allowed to carry? That's the question. Okay, so send yes or no to 085 825 2626 by WhatsApp. Jeremy, you obviously believe they shouldn't be allowed to carry anything.
Well, to carry a weapon is illegal. And
yeah, we know that.
If we started allowing taxi drivers to carry weapons, then what do we allow people working in fast food restaurants to carry weapons? Do we allow Deliveroo, Just Eat drivers carry weapons? I mean,
some of them do.
Where do you draw the line?
But some of them do. That's the point. That's how dangerous it can be. We've seen with delivery drivers the amount of attacks that they've suffered, and it's been quite extensive. 085 825 2626 is our WhatsApp number. This is a WhatsApp voice note from Paddy.
No, there's no way you should give them weapons. Should they be pulling the weapons out and using them on each other at taxi ranks over city rows like that? Fair enough. Obviously, if they're being attacked, you'd like them to have a weapon, but you can't just give them a weapon and let them be attacking each other at taxi ranks. Like that guy just pulled that knife out over what looks like a simple row over a taxi rank or whatever like that, and he's whipping out a knife. Looks like he's nearly ready to lose the cool and stab somebody, like, you know what I mean? Madness.
085 825 2626. Should taxi drivers be allowed to be armed with a pepper spray, or should, as that message that I played for you said, should all taxi drivers be frequently searched and have all weapons that they may have confiscated from them? 085 825 2626. For example, Thomas said, pepper spray is fine. Tasers can be dangerous because of heart conditions and where people fall and hit their head on concrete. Okay, but pepper spray is okay, according to that person. Prevention is better than cure, says Shane. Serve a severe sentence for it and it'll stop. And I assume what you mean by that is serve a severe sentence for people, taxi drivers carrying a weapon, and that will stop it. The fact of the matter is, whether we like it or not, that some taxi drivers are carrying weapons, some delivery drivers are carrying weapons, and we're really trying to find out whether or not they're doing that for their own safety, because they are so nervous when they're out driving. Because I have to be honest, I don't think I would like to be. I used to think years ago that I'd like to be a taxi driver, that it'd be a great retirement job, but not so sure now. Adia sent us this WhatsApp voice note.
Hey guys, it's Adia here. I think pepper spray, maybe. I wouldn't say something as harsh as a taser, because that can affect people negatively, like bad, if they have heart problems or anything like that. So the risks of permanent damage with pepper spray would be like the least, and it wouldn't be classed as like a third level assault or something like that. But they should have the same things as bus drivers do, because you can nearly argue that what do bus drivers have to defend themselves? But they have cameras, and they know they can call the police, and they're not immediate in, like, say the bus driver has the shield and stuff, but taxi drivers don't. So, what could they do? I don't know. Maybe someone can suggest something they can do, like a shield or a barrier where, say, the front seat isn't filled and there's a thing constantly, a protection barrier between the driver and the passengers. Just an idea. Thanks, guys.
All right, thank you very much indeed for your message. 085 825 2626 is our WhatsApp number. Should taxi drivers be allowed to carry a defensive weapon? And we'll use the example of pepper spray. I don't think anybody will agree with taxi drivers being allowed to carry knives. We've seen in that video that most of you have seen at this stage, one particular taxi driver with a large blade down at his side. He didn't use it, but the fact is he had it. Now, John, good morning to you.
How are you, Adrian?
John, do you think taxi drivers should be allowed to carry some sort of a weapon?
I think that, it could be a viable solution, but I think that they need to go through all the necessary legal channels to do that. They can't just decide one day, wake up, I'm going to carry a knife because I don't feel safe. I think that they would have to make an application and get a Kona or some governing body, maybe who rules over the taxi industry itself. Because I'll tell you something, that guy, even though he didn't use the blade, had that have been somebody that would stand up to him, the chances are he may well have ended up maybe killing somebody or at least injuring them severely. I didn't see the video, but it seems that nobody actually wanted to take him on. But a lot of the kids out there today, they're crazy and they don't fear knives and stuff like that. So would he have used it in a situation? And he probably would. And I think that he should be tracked down individually. His license should be revoked, and that's his taxi license and his driving license, because that's
now, you've already heard
issue.
You heard a message I played a while ago from a taxi driver who said he will be reporting him. So indeed I've seen this particular taxi driver's ID. We have his name. A lot of people have seen the same screen grabs from the Taxi Check app. I'm not going to name him. It's not up to me to name this guy. But the fact of the matter is, he is being reported. Would you like to see, in this video, you see a guy who's clearly a taxi driver and clearly with a knife in his hand. Do you think he should be taken off the streets of Dublin and have his taxi license revoked?
Immediately. Absolutely, immediately. there's no there's no excuse for that. You know what I mean? As I said, he's pulled the knife, and had he been challenged at that moment in time by one of the other, I think of a taxi men, he may well have used it. As it happened, he didn't. But I mean, the fact was that he had it there and he was prepared to take it out to show that he's armed and dangerous.
Okay, stay there for 1 second, John. 085 825 2626 is our WhatsApp number. Celia, good morning. Welcome to Opinions Matter.
Hello there. How are you?
Good, thank you. Celia, you're always nervous travelling in a taxi, are you?
Even when I was going to the airport, I would request a lady taxi driver if there was one available.
Why?
Because I know for a fact that a lot of taxi drivers were people that had a police record. I know they check on all these things now, but there are also taxi drivers that they loan their taxis out for a certain amount of money so that they're on the road 24 hours. There could be 3 different drivers for the one taxi, so you're still not sure who you're getting in with. I mean, I would always...
Okay, but if you order... I don't know if you've ever seen the Taxi Check app where you can just put in the reg of a car and see who's meant to be driving it, or if you get the taxi badge number, you can check to see who that person is. So there is some...
I have been in a taxi like that, and it wasn't the same person that was on the badge on the...
And did you report that?
No, I didn't.
You see, if people don't report these things, then...
I was nervous of the guy that I was with then. I thought, gosh, if I report him now, he's come to my house to pick me up and he knows where I live. And if I report him, he'll know who it was.
So, as a result then, if you are travelling alone in a taxi, you specifically ask for a female driver to collect you?
Well, that's if I'm going to the airport. I mean, it's impossible otherwise to get a woman taxi driver. I think there are even fewer now than there were before. You know, can you think of any ladies that have picked you up in taxis? There really aren't very many now.
No, there may not be a huge amount. I do know a couple. For example, that lady who sent the message, she's a female taxi driver. I know a family friend is a female taxi driver. Now, she's not driving... She's not driving at night time. She mostly works during the day. Yeah, exactly.
And a lot of taxi drivers that I have spoken to now, I don't get into taxis very often because they're so expensive, but they've said that they don't work at night. You know, they only work up to a certain hour. But I'd also said on my email about the Chinese delivery drivers having the baseball bat under their seat.
You see, I have to be honest with you. If I was a delivery driver or if I was a taxi driver, I think I would be very nervous, and I think I would carry some sort of a defensive weapon. And probably that's the reason I'm not a taxi driver, because I would feel a little bit nervous being a taxi driver.
You have every right to be feeling nervous. Get 2 or 3 guys in the car coming home after the pubs used to close. Then they don't pay. There's more frequent stories of them not paying.
And John, let me go back to you for 1 second. John, can you understand why a lady like this might be nervous getting into a taxi and would ask for... John's not there. He's not there. Would ask for... a female driver. Does anybody else feel that way? Send me a WhatsApp to 085 825 2626. That's 085 825 2626. And Celia, the question that I'm asking today is, should taxi drivers be allowed to carry some sort of a defensive weapon? And I'll use pepper spray as an example, because I don't think anybody would agree with them carrying a knife.
But it's illegal. Pepper spray is illegal.
No, I'm aware of that.
Even though you can get it on Wish, and it's only about €5. Says me that has one in my bag anytime I'm ever in a taxi.
Right, okay. So there's a bit of a contradiction.
You can also have a pepper, like just a normal pepper. Just your Saxa pepper or whatever. That could do as much damage if you took the top off it and just threw it in somebody's face. And hairspray.
Okay, so just to go back to my question, do you think that a taxi driver who's out working antisocial hours, carrying people home with drink on them, and let's remember, this city, this country is starting to get back to normal. Pubs, albeit only outdoors at the moment, there are people out who want taxis home at night. I saw them in town last week. It is busy enough. Should those taxi drivers be allowed to do what you do and carry some form of pepper spray?
I think they should be allowed, but I don't think that they'll ever legally be allowed.
Okay.
I really do think they should have some form of protection, you know.
And back to my point, or your point, should I say, at the start of the conversation, which was you feel unsafe in taxis.
Safe, yeah.
You don't like being in a taxi with a man on your own.
On my own. I always hope that, say, young girls or young guys going home go in a pair, but then they usually drop off one first, and the person is left in the car on their own with somebody, you know.
Okay, now, sorry,
that I'm just listening to this idiot. That's very hurtful for any taxi drivers who may be listening who happen to be male, because it's kind of tarring every single male taxi driver with the same brush, that they're all potential attackers. And I have a lot of...
Of course they're not. Yes, I know, you're absolutely right.
But what you're saying is...
We only hear of the ones that are a few bad apples.
Yeah, but you're tarring them all with the one brush.
But that's my fear. That's just my fear. And
but it's a fear not based on any particular experience, is it?
Yeah. I did have a fright.
With the taxi driver?
Yeah, and when he wouldn't let me out of the taxi. He had locked all the doors.
Well, tell us the story. Tell us the story. What happened, Celia? Tell us the story.
Well, he just he didn't want payment. He wanted something else. He wanted payment of a different kind.
And did he say that directly to you?
He did, yeah.
And
I said it's very expensive coming from town to where I lived. And he says, well, you can pay me in another way. And I went to get out the door, and the doors were locked. And eventually I got out because I started shouting and screaming and causing mayhem, you know. So, but
okay. Well, now I can understand. Now I can. And Jeremy, you were saying about her tarring all taxi drivers with the one brush. Now I can understand that you have a genuine reason for being nervous with a male taxi driver. That is scary.
That's terrifying. What happens?
But I am nervous if the person that's driving the taxi isn't the person that's on the board.
But again, I would argue with you that you can do one of two things. You can get back out of the car or report him. And unfortunately, if people don't use the option to report a taxi driver who is the wrong person in the car or the wrong person on the badge, if they're not reported, that just continues.
Yeah, you're right.
And it's been made easier than ever.
I do think, though, they do have I know they find it, like, don't they have very high insurance and all the rest of it? It's not very easy to be a taxi driver, I don't think.
No, it's not. But if a taxi driver is being misrepresented on the badge on his dash and it's not the person that the app tells you should be driving that particular taxi, you have to report these guys or they'll continue to get away with it. That's the simple answer.
Right.
All right, great to talk to you. Thanks very much indeed. 085 825 2626 is our WhatsApp number. If you want to get involved in this conversation, this is David.
How are you, lads? I've always said that Irish taxis should be like New York taxis. There should be a screen between the back seats and the front seats. No passengers in the front. They should all be the one colour, have to be uniform taxi like in New York. And when a taxi man is buying a car to be used as a taxi, there should be no VAT or anything like that, but they can only use it as a taxi. And then they can have their normal car. And there should be a lot more stiffer sentences for attacks on anybody in the front line, not just taxis. Cheers.
All right, thanks very much indeed, David, for your message. Now, Stephen, good morning. Welcome to Opinions Matter.
How's it going?
Good, thanks. What did you want to say on this?
Yeah, well, I'm a bus driver, as you know. I do the Dublin to Belfast runs at night time. they can be a bit dodgy. I've come across a lot of crap in the night time, but I never have any reason to carry any weapons or whatsoever at the bus. Like, I was tempted to bring kind of a hurling stick before, but I never, even if I had it, I don't think I'd ever use it. I'd probably kind of use it as kind of to scare people away or something. But
and do you regularly feel nervous?
Yeah, every day. Like doing nights, I do. Yeah, 100%. I am. It's nerve wracking. It's absolutely nerve wracking. But there's no way.
But are you not behind as a bus driver? Are you not behind a perspex screen?
We are to a certain extent, yeah. But there's like
no, to a certain extent, or you are. Are you behind a perspex screen?
Yeah, we are. Some buses some of the buses we have, we do have them. Some of them we don't. It just sometimes it just depends on what bus we're driving. But most of the time we have them, yeah.
Okay.
But they still can break in, like.
So give me an idea of the most scary incident you've had driving a bus that would make you think about carrying a weapon.
Well, I had one incident where two lads refused to get off the bus because they were drinking, and they came up behind me with a chisel, and they tried to open the door of my cab, and they started belting the door through. Eventually, they did actually open it. I don't know how they managed to do it, but they managed to open it, and I almost got a hiding. But thank God it was somebody on the bus that helped me. Situation like that now, I probably if I had it, I probably would have used it 100%.
But that has made you think that maybe you should be carrying some sort of a weapon. Oh, we've lost him. He's gone. 085 825 2626. I mean, there's two stories from both sides of the fence. The lady in the taxi who was propositioned by the driver, and then the bus driver who has been attacked when driving the bus. So you can see from his point of view how he would like to have some sort of a weapon because it's so dangerous. And on the other side of the coin, that lady ironically was contradicting herself, because she, on the one hand, is carrying a pepper spray herself, but she is very nervous in taxis, doesn't trust male taxi drivers because of her experience with that guy who propositioned her.
Yeah, in fact, sorry, Stephen is back on the line there for you.
Sorry, you there now, Stephen? Yep.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah.
So do you believe, and this is the question, do you believe that taxi drivers, and maybe even bus drivers like yourself, should be allowed to carry even a pepper spray for their own protection?
Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah, 100%. I do totally. When it comes to knives and stuff like that, that's just crazy. But yeah, 100% with that.
Okay, so that would make you feel a little bit safer.
Yeah, it would make me feel a bit more relaxed to a certain extent.
All right, good to talk to you, Stephen. Thanks very much indeed. 085 825 2626 is our WhatsApp number. We're asking whether or not you believe taxi drivers should be allowed to be armed in some way. Dave is against them carrying any sort of weapon.
Hey, Adrian and Jeremy, Dave here. Brilliant app, by the way. Love listening to it on that. But in relation to the taxi driver carrying a weapon, I wouldn't advise it. There's two reasons. One, if you're carrying a weapon, you better know how to use it, because if you don't, someone's going to take it off you and use it on you. Okay. Number two, it's going to make other people feel unsafe getting into their cabs. Are you going to feel safe getting into a taxi if you're a young girl and you might be getting into a taxi with some taxi man that you don't know, and he has mace or whatever on him, and he could spray you in the face and do what he wanted with you? There's enough people that are nervous getting into taxis as it is without getting in with a driver who has a weapon. Now, I fully understand that they're nervous, probably of people getting into their car, but they're after choosing that job. They picked that as a career. I would have loved to have been a taxi driver. I heard you saying it earlier, Adrian, that you would have liked to be one too. But I wouldn't take the risks. It's too risky letting strangers get into your car and the risks you're taking doing that. But you know it when you take on the job. I think a better solution would be stop letting people sit in the front seat with you. Just have them sitting in the back, and have the cabs properly set up like they do in the States, where there's a protective like glass, proper glass where they can't get into the driver. Something like that. Proper cars set up for having passengers in them. Something like that would be much, much better than having a weapon, because if you don't know how to use a weapon, don't carry one.
And in fact, Dave, the reality of it is that since COVID, any taxi I've been in recent weeks has had a protective screen. And not all of them have, but an awful lot of them do. And that's as a result of COVID as opposed to safety. Anyway, thanks very much indeed for all of your calls, comments, texts and opinions. This is Opinions Matter.